Welcome to Thrones and Scone. We need to make it a musical. It's your weekday morning podcast. We talk where we talk Game of Thrones shop over breakfast. Tony on Jeremy in with you on this Thursday, hitting season 1, episode 4, and you're gonna make me say all of this. Maple pecan from our scone today. What's up, boys? Welcome. We did, and I just thought of this morning as we're getting ready to record. We just rang in the new year silently. So happy 2019.
Happy 2019.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good time. It's a good time to be alive. It's a good time to watch Trump, bury our country into the ground.
This is what we're turning the podcast into. Welcome. We gave you 3 episodes of Game of Thrones, and now it's all Trump all the time. Hashtag
DT.
Today is, of course, Cripples, Bastards, Broken Things. An interesting little mid-series episode. I think we're going to have a lot of good, maybe a little bad to talk on today. But first impressions, what are your thoughts?
I feel like it's a good story. You're getting to know the characters a little bit more. We don't get a lot of, I would say, of new development, other than just kind of like traveling. I think the wall starts to become a little more relevant now in the story. Overall, it wasn't a bad episode. Not enough killing, but we'll get there soon.
As you're saying, not a ton of new development, not a ton of nude development either.
Yeah, just the one, good.
Just the one, and of course we'll get to it in due time. Hans, you got any first impressions about Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things?
It was fine. Kind of just a bridge episode for me. I didn't feel like a ton happened, but it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a bad episode.
All right, you guys gotta pick one here. Are you a cripple? Are you a bastard? Or are you a broken thing?
Oh, I'm a broken thing, definitely.
Yeah. I think I'd be a bastard.
Well, that leaves Hans as the cripple, which just leads us to all kinds of good stuff.
So this is an episode, I think, as far as the big plot points and the real emotional turns, that's focused on Tyrion, in that we open and we end with him in really different ways. We start with him headed to Winterfell on his way back down south, and that doesn't go necessarily as he expects. He's maybe starting to suspect a couple things, but he has that nice moment with Bran that I think really just cements him in our hearts as that like relatable character we were talking about earlier in the week.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier, of just like, how does he come up with the saddle itself? Is like, does he like sit in his workshop and develop it himself like he's like this genius troll, or is I mean he says he has obviously a heart for those things that are all broken and crippled. It looks cool. I mean, I think it kind of, Bran now has woken. He's just kind of gone through that dream where he sees kind of his future, in that seeing the raven and the third eye, which foretells a lot. And then he comes downstairs and is really appreciable of those things, because he's still going through a lot with being a little bitch, whining about not having legs or not being able to use them. So
it's so
what a little bitch.
What a little bitch. I mean, you fell like 35 feet. Suck it up.
Yeah, crippled for life at
Walking's
10.
overrated.
Deal with it.
Hashtag ride horses.
We've all been there. No, I think, I swore to Christ I wasn't going to be this guy when we decided to do this podcast. But in the book, it does say, I think, that the saddle is developed from Tyrion's saddle, because he's obviously, he needs a specialized one to be able to ride as well.
Yep.
That's interesting.
I
like the book tidbits from a person who has not read the books. It's enjoyable.
Yeah. They're great.
Yeah, you're welcome.
He just pushed his glasses back up on back to the bridge.
Yeah. One thing I do think is a little odd about this episode is we're starting to see this side of Ned Stark that Ned Stark is uncomfortable with. This confrontational thing where he's... I think this is the episode. Again, it's kind of hard to keep him steady with our crappy notes. I think this is the one where he has that weird conversation with Cersei where they're trading threats vaguely. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, so I think, is this the one where the comment on like, what is your role or coming here? Where do you see? Like, what are you doing here? And he's acting. He's like, well, I mean, he's the hand, so he's like, I'm just helping my king. And she doesn't believe him. He doesn't believe her. And I think there was the subtle threat where You know,
Well,
like
she's like, you were just a soldier trained to lead, and he's like, I was also trained to kill my enemies. And she says, oh, so was that?
which was kind of hot for her. Let's
And
just
then
be
they
honest, it was
fuck.
kind of hot. If Jamie was right there, he'd been like, we need to walk in this hallway right now. We'll spank that ass right there. Yeah.
But it's so, I mean, you get that he's kind of there and he's putting on this big thing, playing it to keep Robert safe, but he is starting to know that something is going on. He's looking into whatever John Aaron was looking into, and doesn't he realize that it's a little hinky? Like, I get that he'd stick around for Robert, but wouldn't he find a reason to send his family away at this point?
You would think, definitely, because I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's pretty obvious that he's onto something going on here, especially when he's because this is the episode where he goes and gets the book, or is that the next
think
one?
so.
Okay, I think it's this
so.
one. Yeah, because he's already looking. He's already looking around. He finds Gendry, right?
Again, I can't recall.
I'm
but
pretty
since
sure.
There's the word bastards in the title. I'm going to go ahead and assume that
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
Gendry episode.
Yep. So yeah, he's on to something, and we even are introduced in this episode that he knows that Gendry is Robert's bastard. He says it.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
you would think he would get people out of there, and he basically, once he knows that, you would think, I don't know if he explicitly says anything about it yet, because they kind of drag this on a bit, but he would think he would know that Aaron's first name, John Aaron's. God, I don't know why I could remember. You would think he would know John Aaron was murdered at this point. Like, I know he was suspecting it, but my point is that he would get his family the hell out of there.
I think so. And you get that Sansa's stuck, but like he would do what he could. Like Arya would be gone or something.
Yeah.
I don't really understand. Don't know why Arya's there in the first place either.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's training still, right? I mean, isn't that what she's
understand
doing
that.
the entire time in this episode, right? I think she.
Yeah, but I mean, like in King's Landing,
Oh.
what was the benefit of bringing Arya? Like, you didn't bring any of the other kids. I get that Rob had to stay and Bran was crippled, but like Rickon didn't come, and maybe he's too young or something like that. But it kind of seems like they just brought Arya because they brought Sansa, but it's not like they had a great relationship or anything.
Right.
No. Maybe Ned's trying to pawn her off on a dude. Get her married.
Maybe you got to
Get
get
rid
him.
of
You got to get him young.
Don't want to. He doesn't want to put up with her shit anymore.
We also get introduced to Samwell Tarly in this episode, out in the wall.
Yeah, and it's what you expect, right? He's a little porkly man who almost immediately tries to ruin all of his credibility as a human being / man, and says, "Hey, I'm a coward," which I give him credit. Hey, own up to that, right? And they're like, we don't talk about that here.
You gotta love the fact too that I get it. It's a different world. It's like the farthest end of this world where you really kind of gotta be on top of your shit. But like when he says he's a coward and they back up like he has AIDS,
I mean, we don't know what coward
people are gonna
stands
think
for.
we're cowards now too. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's a good thing there. I do think that Sam's introduction is a little forced. Like, I understand his character is supposed to be bumbly and everything. It seems a bit over the top.
Yeah,
It's the same thing, especially when they're on the wall together. Like where he's a good 200 pounds more than John, and he's like, "Oh, come over by the fire." He's like, "Oh, I'm good." I'm like, "You probably are good. I mean, you look comfortable compared to John, who's like freezing his balls off." But it's a story. It definitely sells him and kind of gives you the backstory when he's talking about his father disowning him. Essentially, I mean, like the guy threatens his life. He's like, "Look, if you don't go here, essentially to die, I'm going to kill you until your mom was an accident." So
Hans, I wanna start over on your side today. The best, the worst. What you got?
I think this is a tough one for me. I just feel like a ton just didn't really happen to have pinnacle moments here. I would say the best moment for me, I like when Daenerys stands up to Viserys.
It's a good one. It sets up her character pretty nicely.
Yeah.
It continues to put Viserys in his place.
Yeah, pretty much when anything bad happens to Viserys, I'm on board pretty much at this point in the episode.
Yeah, we got a couple more episodes of satisfaction left there.
Yeah. My least favorite part, I think my least favorite part in this one is just, I'm not a big Samwell Tarly fan. Mm-hmm. He's fine, and I think his character arc is obviously a long one. And, I guess, obviously, if you've seen the show.
Or is it?
But I just, for the most part, I've not been the biggest fan of him. And like I said, I think my least favorite part was just how hard they pushed it on you in this episode, right? With just like the over the top bumbliness, like you were saying. I think I got to go with that just because it's a little much.
And in an episode that really kind of slowed things down in a sense, the fact that happened so quickly, I think is like, it makes it extra prominent and out of the ordinary.
Yeah. And not to mean I don't like those scenes, because I like the fact that John takes it on himself to stand up for him despite all that. But and I like how all that plays out. But yeah, not kind of a turd for me.
All right, Jeremy?
So probably my favorite part was the look on Jamie's face while King Robert is boning, 5 women. And he's like, he makes me watch this. I'm like, I'm sure he does. I would do the same. So I just found immense satisfaction with that. I would say runners up definitely was when Viserys takes it across the face and just, just the look of like, wait, I'm your bitch, and she's like, you're my bitch. You're gonna be my handless bitch if you touch me again. And I thought that was pretty cool. I don't disagree with some of the worst things the House was talking about. Part of this is, and this is also in the books, but like they make the Stark family like the best private investigators in the world. Right? Like, Ned discovers what Jon was doing in, like, seconds, right?
Really quickly.
Yeah. And then, like, his wife, finds a hair and already knows that there's this Hanky Panky thing going on. So, I think that's just a little tiring for me. But other than that...
Hanky?
Hey. Hashtag Twins Fest.
What does Hanky Panky mean?
Well, it's what the twins do. They're together in this moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we actually? So the hair that she found, has that come back from the DNA analyzer yet? Have we gotten those results?
No, it's got to go by Raven.
Right.
So
okay.
It's in the other town, so they're just takes a little bit. The horse rider, right? The horse rider takes it to it's a long thing. So I would say that's pretty much it. I don't know, Tony, what did you think?
It's and I touched on it last episode, I know, but it continues to be my least favorite thing right now. And I know they just set it up that he's sowing discourse and everything. He wants to watch the world burn. But what does Littlefinger want? What is he getting out of anything? This whole weird conversation he has with Sansa Stark at this tournament.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. That was that's a hilarious moment.
What's it for?
She's over there pining away at the douchebag, and he's like, "Oh yeah, don't tell anyone you know about the Hound because he'll murder you." He's like, "Okay, peace out, have a good day."
It's just to set up, like, is it just to set him up as the one person in her immediate area that she can trust, but doesn't really do a good job of that? I don't know.
Yeah, that's so funny. He tells her this story about Gregor and then says, "But if anyone finds out you know this, you're dead." Then why tell her? Like, she didn't care.
Sits down. He's like, "Okay, this is good. Let's watch someone just poke each other with sticks now."
Yeah, I remember back in watching the show the first time, thinking that Littlefinger and Varys were really kind of playing the same thing. But now knowing what we know and just seeing how things are panning out, Varys is kind of Team Dany from the start. Like, he's even talking to Illyrio and the Dungeons in the episode prior, which I never realized. And then Littlefinger he just seems to be there to confuse people, I guess.
Yeah.
But my favorite part about this episode is from one of my least favorite characters, Catelyn Stark, coming to this thing, which I think is a reasonable conclusion that she came to, despite how she got there with the Batman Detective Agency thing.
Sure.
But where she's at right now, I think what she did in that tavern, seizing Tyrion, is a logical conclusion, but it's also when you can set the stopwatch and go, here's where things fucked up.
Yeah, and again, I don't know Tyrion, and he kind of reveals her to the world there, and has this like smug look on his face when he's doing it. So I kind of I found it enjoyable that he gets called out, but he still makes logical arguments, and I think as we go into the next episode, which is kind of ties up a few of these things, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens to him.
Yeah, and I think that's a despite how we know it all plays out. That was a very cool moment, right? When she gets everyone on her side and everything. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, the lords to arm thing is badass.
If you think about it, she's from the north. A lot of these people don't know her personally, right? And how much it would take to stand up to a Lannister despite it being Tyrion, obviously. But
true.
still, like, it would take a lot. So that moment was pretty sweet.
Despite the fact that just because it went on so long, it was kind of funny where, you could have almost believed that it was like, oh, and Lord Wentley over there, how fares your father's foot? It'd been like, oh, it is good, my lady, it is healing nicely.
And the goats, they are well fed? He's like, yes, ma'am, they are well fed.
Seize this man, yeah.
Seize this man.
Well, with character development pretty rampant in this episode, I think one of the big themes was morality. They took some time to set not just like the good and bad characters, but the righteously moral characters and the more chaotic characters. And I'm curious who you think falls on both sides of that coin. I think for sure they're setting Jon and Ned, and have been doing since the first episode, to really fall on that. They are white knighting this whole thing. They are very lawful good to their core being. And I think Tyrion got a little bit of that in this episode as well.
Yeah.
And
I think
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I think there was a ton of development, and I think one of the things to add to that too, when we're talking about our best and worst, and I was really saying this episode really slowed down for me to kind of hit on all that character development, and it was very expository, and I think just thinking about all our worst moments, none of those moments were that bad, right? So, I mean, overall, it seems like it was a pretty good episode, despite the fact that it was just, a lot of character development, kind of really slowed down things. But
I think it was, and, we're dealing with such a high margin here. For me, it was the weakest episode so far.
I agree.
With regard to the morality thing, I think you could look at Jon. Right? So, this is the conversation where, he's a bastard. He's accepted that, and he's talking to Sam, and he's like, look, this is not a life I would give to another human being. I didn't have sex, I've had the opportunity, and they kind of like chuckle about boobies for a little bit, which is super cool. And then they're like,
cool.
he's like, how are they? And she was like, oh, they were super nice, but I didn't touch them.
Didn't know where to put it.
Because by touching them, I would impregnate her, which we'll get back to that later. So he's like, he gets that. And he seems to understand his place. He seems to understand what that would have a chance for his child. So I think that's actually I think that drives him. We know that he doesn't know who his mom is, how he is very sad and kind of burdened by that. And you can contrast that sort of like behavior to, let's say, with Joffrey, right? Who is just an asshat across the board, right? He acts with a name alone, right? He knows, look, I can get away with it all. Doesn't matter what you are. Doesn't matter who you say. I have my family. I have my mom, who's titty. I want to suckle every moment. And then what he ends up doing is he plays off on that, using kind of like that role to get away with everything that he wants. I mean, including getting a dog murdered, you son of a bitch.
I mean, this is looking way ahead, because I would actually say that as far as the morality thing goes, they've done a good job of setting up Cersei as a very chaotic character. I don't think Joffrey's there yet. We've got a couple glimpses of him going reverse to that, where it's him and Sansa sharing this awkward glance where it's not evil. You can tell there's something up with them, especially with that conversation they had where he's like, oh, they're going to destroy my enemies and stuff. Like, it's there, but they've held him to that restrained point, and I think they do until the end of the season,
right.
when he really falls off the deep end.
Right. You can see that he's an evil kid, right? I mean, like, no one enjoys cutting another person for the fun of it, right? I mean, there's just no...
I like the point about Jon, and I didn't even realize this. Jon is one of those guys that I guess has that moral high ground while there's someone to hold him to it. Mm-hmm. So Tyrion was there to do it at first, and then the second he leaves, Sam comes in to kind of keep him up above board. And then looking way forward, when we go beyond the wall, that's when Jon's story kind of starts to take weird turns. And so it is, he really is kind of that sponge for whatever's around.
Right.
Which is interesting.
What did you think about Dany?
So that's what I wanted to talk about as well. I wrote down Daenerys for this good morality, and then I put a question mark by it, because by the end of the episode, are they really setting her up to be a moral character, or just a character that, like, we place on the right side of the battle?
I mean, it's such a short turnaround right now, right? I mean, you have her sold to marriage, gets pregnant through rape, or lovemaking. It's kind of hard to tell right now.
Yeah, no, I think the pregnancy happened through the lovemaking.
Yeah,
I'd like to
sure.
believe.
I mean, she's quick to accept her new position, and you don't know why exactly, right? You know, is she just kind of I'll just roll with the punches and keep a smile on my face? And what is her role in understanding, like, what does she want, right? Does she really want the same thing her brother wants? Does she want a war? Does she want a throne? And I don't think you get those answers right now. And I think that's kind of why I think her story's a little slow right now on this episode specifically. So I think in the next couple we'll get a little bit more on that. But right now she's kind of in the middle for me. You don't know where she falls.
Well, we of course are half and half here. Half great HBO action and half delicious pastries. So for Thrones and Scones as we move on, Hans has a maple pecan scone today. Where's it from?
This is from Collectivo Coffee again.
You gotta hit episode 1 if you missed the story of Collectivo Coffee. But yes, so maple pecan, what'd you think?
It was pretty good.
All right. If you guys want to hit up our social media, you can find us at Thrones and Scones, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They've all got the goods. You keep up with us at thronesandscones.com. Get the episodes there. We will catch you for season 1, episode 5 tomorrow for the final one of the week. You down with GOT?
You know me.
I told Jeremy about this already. Part of the story, at least. So the other day I had food poisoning, and I didn't
It's not
know
funny.
what
I have
it
no
was
idea
from.
why I'm laughing.
Yeah, thanks, man, for tormenting my pain. I had a chicken sandwich for lunch, and then I made a bunch of mostaccioli for dinner. But while I was making it, it's got like Italian pork sausage in it, and I licked my fingers as I was crumbling it in, like without thinking. And so I was assuming that caused it, but.
Sure.
I was like, it was like the worst night I've had in years, and I was like, I don't want to relive that, so maybe I'll throw out like this entire pan of mostaccioli. And Jeremy, the medical professional, is like, no, you're good. You're gonna microwave it. It's gonna be fine. So I ate it for lunch the other day and quickly got food poisoning.
Oh no.
Thankfully, it was like the first time, it was like the most constant, ridiculous stomach ache that feels like you have to either like crap your brains out or vomit, but nothing was happening.
Yeah.
And it was the worst. I was up all night. Thankfully, round 2 was just exclusively shitting my brains out. So
Okay, good.
it was beautiful almost in comparison.
You know, I still don't think we know the answer. So
I haven't thrown it away yet.
Yeah,
so
no, I would
can
eat it
give
again.
I think you give it. I think you give it one more go.
Maybe I take it all and I just dump it into like boiling water.
just douse some Imodium. Just sprinkle some Imodium on it, and then just enjoy it.
And we'll be fine.
Just be
So
fine.
speaking of food poisoning, this is very hilarious. This hilarious in a sense, awful in another sense. So this year we've had not one but 2 patients admitted to the hospital, and the chief complaint, or like the reason for being admitted, was Taco Bell. So they ate. Hang on, my cat's trapped here. They ate Taco Bell. One of the patients he ended up in the ICU in the critical care unit.
Which doesn't sound unreasonable if you've had Taco Bell. We've all been there.
And then he had all sorts of issues. I can't remember him, but the other guy who had Taco Bell basically had just like explosive diarrhea, so bad, got admitted to the hospital. His diarrhea was so bad that he ended up seeding bacteria into his blood and got bacteremia. And basically, the last thing, he was there for a couple days. We treated him. We were going to send him home on antibiotics and everything. And then the last thing that the ID doctor, the infectious disease doctor, said to him, he just put his hand on him. He said, "Let's stay away from the Taco Bell."
Which, I mean, kill me first.
We got together. We got you a gift card. Enjoy the border.